In the last few years, we have seen a ton of creators come out with their own companies, with some of the biggest examples being Feastables, Prime, and Joyride. And this is different from the past since, in a lot of cases, these companies are separate from the actual channels. In the past, we mainly saw YouTubers selling merch or maybe the occasional plushie, but now it is completely different, and it makes me wonder why that is. Is this just another thing where everyone is copying Mr. Beast? Is this simply because they want more money? And also, why are most of them food products? Well, we'll be going over all of that in this video, so let's get right into it. First of all, I want to look at where all of this started, and there are really like two main places we can start. If we want to go down the food route, then we need to look at Beastburger, since that was like the first big YouTuber food brand and what led the Sidemen to create Sides, and pretty shortly after that, there were a bunch more YouTuber food brands. However, even before this, we had Linus Tech Tips, which I think was the first really big channel to kind of revolutionize the creator space when it came to expanding outside of the platform. This channel is basically a big company itself, and it has over 100 employees, and Linus recently made a video going over how they make money, and they also made a similar video over 8 years ago, which really shows how they were among the first channels to treat this like a full-on business. And when you compare the breakdown from then versus now, you can see how Linus Tech Tips has grown a ton, and over half of the revenue comes from things they sell, with the most notable being their screwdriver. This is a custom-made product that took them years to design, and it was very highly anticipated, and it was doing over $1 million a day when it first came out, which is insane and really shows the power of having a good product. And even before this, they had a ton of other products that all fit with the overall brand of the channel, and I believe they were really like the pioneers in the whole space by showing just how far you could take a YouTube channel. However, a key difference between Linus and most other YouTubers is that his products were actually related to his channel, and they made a lot of sense. So now, where did all of these other YouTuber companies come from that seem to sell completely random things? The only other YouTuber that comes to mind is Mark Rober, who started Crunch Labs, and that fits very well with his channel, and you could stretch it a little by saying Moist Critical Soap Company is on brand, but outside of that, it doesn't seem to make sense, especially with the whole food thing. This all would start with Beastburger, and this was honestly a very surprising move when it happened. However, there was some reasoning behind it since this was launched during COVID, and Mr. Beast said he wanted to create it to help out small businesses since the burgers would be cooked in their kitchens and then delivered out to the customer, and burgers are a fairly popular food item, so it wouldn't be hard to sell. This meant that Mr. Beast himself didn't have to really do too much since pretty much everything was outsourced, so all he had to do was promote it, which was easy considering he was the biggest YouTuber in the world. In 2022, he would also open up a physical location at the American Dream Mall, and this was a massive event. However, after this, things would only go downhill for the brand, and Mr. Beast is currently suing the company he partnered with for Beastburger because the quality is very inconsistent, and overall everything was rushed for the sake of profit, and that's not what Mr. Beast wanted. And this showed that creators need to have control over their businesses, since otherwise it could get ruined, and this is something that Mr. Beast took into account for Feastables since he is very involved with that brand, and it is the most successful YouTuber company out there as it makes 9 figures a year, which was confirmed by Mr. Beast himself. 2022 was overall a pretty big year since this is also when we saw the launch of Prime along with Feastables. However, before this period, we had the Sidemen come out with Sides and their vodka in 2021, which were really big surprises. Sides wasn't as big of a surprise since Mr. Beast had done Beastburger, and this was kind of similar, except that they made sure to start small, and they also had physical locations to make sure the quality was good. But the most surprising thing was the vodka, since that seemed really out of the blue as it was an alcoholic drink, and you would think most of their fans were kids. However, they had good reasoning since they had been doing YouTube for a while and their original and most loyal fans had grown up, so it was a product that fit their most loyal fan base and the fan base that would be most likely to support them. And since then, they have also made things like card games and cereal, so they seem to be covering a wide range of products. However, one difference with the Sidemen is that they seem to be keeping their operations a bit smaller compared to most other YouTuber brands that are trying to get as big as possible. However, this is something that still works for the sidemen. In 2021, we saw Happy Dad come out, which was created by the Nelk Boys, and this was another alcoholic brand, and this definitely fit in a lot more with their brand and audience, and it has become very successful with various partnerships, and it just overall is a brand that is getting sold to the masses, and I would say it is definitely worth 8 to 9 figures. And more recently, we saw another alcoholic brand called Alcolo, which was created by Whistling Diesel, and this seems to also be doing pretty well. And personally, I would say 2021 was the year that really marked the start of YouTubers building businesses, especially when it came to food. It first started with Mr. Beast in 2020, and then things really leveled up in 2022 with the launch of the brands we mentioned earlier, and after that, we have just seen these brands grow really big, and we have also seen newer ones come into the picture like Mike Malak creating 1010 Burger, and Ryan Trahan becoming a co-owner of Joyride on top of Lunchly, which includes Feastables and Prime as well. And I could go on and on about even more companies and even different organizations and charities and stuff created by other creators, but I think you get the point that they have seemingly popped up out of nowhere in the last few years. And this brings us back to the original questions we set out to answer. In a way, I do believe this is a trend since it took certain YouTubers to actually do it for others to see that it was possible, which led them to follow along in their own ways. However, the good thing is that not everyone is creating literally the same product, which is different than normal trend jacking. We are seeing a variety of different products, and even though there are similar ones like alcoholic drinks, they are unique enough for the most part, and I believe there is still a ton of time for there to be a lot more innovation and for more YouTubers to come out with more products. And as for whether or not it is a greed thing, well, I think that is more of something we have to look at case by case, since some YouTubers could be doing it because they want to make as much money as possible, while others could be doing it because they really believe in their product and actually enjoy it. But for the most part, I think it is a mix of both. Most creators wouldn't go out of the way to put in all the time, money, and effort required to create their own product if they didn't expect to at least get something out of it. Mr. Beast is the only person I can think of that would potentially do that, since he spent a ton of money on Beast games and lost a lot of his own money for the content. However, he does have Feastables and Lunchly, which help fund his videos. But overall, it is clear that creators are making their own companies since they expect to make a profit, but that doesn't necessarily make them greedy or anything. I'm sure that most of these creators have realized that they need to do more sustainable things since they probably can't do YouTube forever, so they need an avenue outside of just ad revenue and merch sales because both of them die down as a creator's popularity dies down. And YouTube is a fairly new thing in the grand scheme of things, and we haven't really seen what it looks like to be a YouTuber long term since most have only been doing it for a few years. One example is PewDiePie, who is kind of retired and uploads casual videos now. However, he was literally the biggest creator, and a retirement like that isn't possible for most other creators. This is why making a separate company is a good idea, since creators can leverage their current brand and reach to promote that company and get it off the ground faster and get feedback faster to help turn it into something that can survive without relying on a certain creator. And this is a smart thing for YouTubers to be doing, and is why I don't think most of them are doing it for greed or anything. But finally, we have the question about why most of these companies are food/drink related. Well, for this, I think it's because it's simply the easiest to sell because food is very universal, and that is good for these massive creators that have a very broad fan base. Plus, for most creators, there really isn't anything specific they could sell that isn't like completely random. Mark Rober and Linus Tech Tips are very large creators while having a fairly specific focus with their channels, so it makes sense that they have specific products they can sell, but for other creators, they have done so much stuff over the years that they don't really have a specific focus on their channels, and that is why there really aren't any physical products they could sell that fit their brand or audience. This is why food makes sense because most people eat chocolate or drink energy drinks. And with the case of Mike Malak, his burger company actually makes sense for him since he has done a ton of burger reviews. But for the most part, food just has the most mass appeal, which is why it seems to be the most common YouTuber product. And that is also it for this video. I really do hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know what your top 3 YouTuber companies are down below in the comments. But with that said, I'll catch you all in the next one.